Hey everyone, I'm Mariana and I am back with another Game of Thrones episode review. As always, this is a spoiler discussion, so make sure you're caught up on the show before watching this video, and let's talk about Game of Thrones Season 7, Episode 6, Beyond the Wall. As you can tell by the title, I am going to take a slightly different approach to this video. This isn't going to be a regular recap. I'm trying something new. I think for every episode this season, I said there were things that I loved and things that I didn't like as much, and this is definitely also how I feel about this episode, though I'm not going to lie, it didn't quite hit the mark for me. So I'm going to talk about my top 5 favorite and least favorite things about Beyond the Wall. At number 5, for best, of course, the visuals. We have whites and white walkers, we have dragons and dragon fire, which never gets old for me, and a polar bear white, and action and flaming swords, and Dany's beautiful outfit, and all of this stuff just looked great. I think we can all agree that from the visual perspective, this was a really good looking episode. They did have to sacrifice some logic in order to make some of these visuals happen, which I will talk about a little bit later, but I think if we're going by how everything looked, they did a really good job, particularly north of the wall. At number 5, worst, I have Jon and Daenerys. We all know I am not a fan of this blossoming romance situation. I've made it clear before if you've seen my older recaps. I know there are a lot of Jon and Daenerys shippers out there, and if you're one of them, I'm happy for you. The show is giving you what you want to see, but I personally just can't get behind this. Even if I put my personal feelings aside, I thought the whole Dany bit was just cringeworthy, and the long looks and her telling him that FYI, dragons are the only children I'll ever have, if you know what I mean. The dialogue was just not there for me, and because they're rushing this season so much, there just isn't enough time for me to buy this romance. Plus, with all of that repetition about how dragons are her only children, they're starting to make me think that she's going to get pregnant, and if Jon and Daenerys, miracle of miracles, are going to start having babies, I just give up. I know this sounds a little bit too dramatic. I'm obviously not going to stop watching the show because there's only one season left and there are other things to enjoy about it, but mentally, I'm just going to be done because I did not sign up for this soap. If this romance is something that George R.R. Martin has in mind for his books, I sincerely hope he's going to take his time with it and make it more plausible, but mostly I hope he's just not going to take this route. At number 4, best, I have Tyrion versus Daenerys. Now, here's some dialogue that I actually enjoyed. As much as I love it when Game of Thrones gets epic, what I really fell in love with from the very first episode were the characters and the politics, you know, the actual Game of Thrones. So I love those smaller scenes of people just talking to each other. Tyrion and Daenerys having a heart-to-heart about heroes, future plans, and Dany's temper was definitely a scene I really enjoyed this episode. Tyrion is trying to do what Varys suggested, give her some good counsel so she doesn't become like her father, and Daenerys isn't very open to his criticism at the moment, but that does not mean she didn't hear it. I thought this was a really good scene that asks more long-term questions. At number 4, worst, I have Arya versus Sansa. This is one of my least favorite developments, not just this season, but of the entire show. Now, when I mentioned this before, some of you have brought up that Sansa and Arya were never that close to begin with, which is a fair observation. However, they have gone through some really traumatic events, and that changes people. Also, they have lost a lot of family on top of that. So in this situation, right after being reunited, it just seems weird for me to see them at each other's throats right away. I think there was a way to do this gradually and to build up to this conflict, but the show just throws in that drama. I did like the beginning of their scene with Arya telling the story of her learning to use a bow, and it actually gave me hope that they would work out their differences. Seemed like a nice personal moment, and I like things like that, but no, Arya immediately goes into blaming Sansa for helping the Lannisters kill Ned based on this letter. This letter drama should have been immediately resolved by Sansa saying, hey, I was forced to write this letter. I thought this was the only way I could save father. I was young and naive. Sorry I was stupid. Joffrey was a terrible monster. But no. And then there's this whole business with the bag of faces and Arya going full psycho mode. Now she's threatening Sansa, saying that all she needs is her face to become the Lady of Winterfell. Why would Arya even want that? Why is HBO doing this? It's like they really want me to straight up dislike her character. At number 3, best is the polar bear. If I can't have plausible character motivation, then I can at least have a zombie polar bear in the middle of a blizzard. That was just awesome. I thought it was a really fun scene to get us warmed up, no pun intended, before the main event with the Whites and the White Walkers. They set this bear white on fire so it becomes a flaming zombie polar bear. I thought it was a really fun scene to watch. I feel like the bear maybe should have done a bit more damage to our heroes, which we'll talk about very soon, but as far as an opener for all of the fighting goes, this was pretty great. Number 3, worst was the lack of consequences. Going north of the wall to capture a white for Cersei was a horrible, stupid plan, and there should have been more consequences for the group. One of the dragons is dead, yes, but it is ridiculous that Thoros is the only actual character who died. If this was one of the earlier seasons of the show, most of these people would have been dead because bad decisions used to have consequences. They came back to bite these characters in the ass, and it didn't matter if it was your favorite character, if it was the good guy, it did not matter. Consequences used to exist. This is not a new problem that's unique to this episode. This is a trend that has been creeping in, but this episode took it to a whole new level. The darkness, the realism, and the existence of consequences are some of the things that made Game of Thrones great, and also things that made it more impactful. This here is quite the opposite. It's just characters having plot armor. And speaking of plot armor, this is my number 2 worst thing about the episode. I am shocked that 6 out of 7 came back from this ridiculous mission. How did they do it? Well, easy. Just throw in some nameless people, some extras to add to their group, and then kill them off instead of the main guys. Everyone else can have a last-minute save. Tormund should have died. I love Tormund, but I am surprised that he has lasted this long, and when he's getting overwhelmed by the Whites, that was a logical place for him to die. Jorah should have died falling off that dragon. Jon should have died of hypothermia. These death fake-outs with people almost drowning and almost getting overwhelmed and almost getting stabbed to death are the kind of TV writing Game of Thrones should be above. If you don't want your character to die, then don't put them in this situation just to create some sense of danger that is then never paid off. People talk about Dragon's Ex Machina in this episode. I feel like that was actually set up pretty well, but how about that Benjen Ex Machina? Good thing he was hanging around to save Jon. Number 2, best thing was the banter north of the wall. Again, with those smaller character moments that I enjoy so much, one of the best things that came out of this episode, at least for me, were all of these smaller character interactions that we got to see. Tormund and the Hound were just priceless. Their dialogue was easily my favorite, and I loved how the actors played off each other. The scene between Jon and Jorah was really good too, where Jon is being Jon and tries to do the honorable thing of giving away his sword, but Jorah does not accept because he doesn't feel like he deserves it. The Gendry bit was essentially a recap for people who don't obsessively rewatch previous seasons. This was a little weaker than the rest, but the way the Hound shut him up was also great. So all of this was fun, but the number one worst thing about this episode was the logic. Where did those giant chains come from in the middle of a lake? And how did those whites wrap them around the dragon? Why can't whites swim one scene and then they're swimming up to grab Tormund the next scene? Why did Daenerys take all 3 of her dragons? Other than plot reasons. Why didn't Jon die from hypothermia or at least get horrible frostbite? Why did Benjen say there's no time as the reason for not getting on the horse with Jon? Why didn't Arya just put one of the faces on to scare the hell out of Sansa if that was her goal instead of talking in riddles? Why, when Jon killed a White Walker, the most convenient plot thing ever happened with exactly 1 white being left standing? The list goes on. I have so many questions for this episode, and I'm sure you do as well. So let me know in the comments below which question bugs you the most about this one. It is clear that Dan and Dave are struggling with writing the show without having the books to rely on. It really seems to me that they're just going through the motions at this point. They have a list of plot points that they want to hit. They have some cool visuals they want to throw on top of that, and it is really starting to feel like the main motivation behind all of this is not their passion for the story and for the project, but their desire to just get it done, and that makes me sad. But the number one best thing about this episode was the ice dragon. First of all, seeing this beautiful beast fall and die was incredibly emotional. The only way to make it more heartbreaking would be to kill Drogon instead of Viserion, but I'm not going to complain because this was impactful as is. I'm also excited about the concept of having an ice dragon on the show. I was hoping this was something that would happen because this really screws things up for the humans with the Night King now having a dragon to ride. I hope instead of fire, he straight up breathes a blizzard so cold it just freezes everything in its path. We'll see what they do with this one. It's also going to be interesting to see how Daenerys will react to the ice dragon. I'm assuming she's going to see him eventually. With her seeing the dragons as her children, this should be really tough for her because she would essentially have to see her baby Viserion die again if they were to defeat the Night King. There is a lot to work with here emotionally and as far as the power balance goes, so I really hope they develop this ice dragon situation to its full potential. Overall, this episode was interesting and conflicting. I'm not going to lie, I was a bit let down by how everything unfolded. I did have slightly higher expectations for this episode because Game of Thrones has always nailed their last 2 episodes of every season, with episode 9 being one of the highlights, if not the highlight of the entire season. In this case, we have 7 episodes, so that job fell to episode 6, but this was definitely my least favorite penultimate episode compared to the other seasons. A lot of this has to do with how safe the main characters are with their plot armor this late in the show, but even if I compare this to the rest of the episodes this season, Beyond the Wall is one of the weakest. Even with all of the ice zombie action, this episode comes nowhere near the the spoils of war. I really hope they somehow pull it together for the finale, and especially for season 8, because that is how the show is going to end. But yeah, it's safe to say I'm quite concerned about where the show is headed from the quality point of view. So that's it for my best and worst of this episode. Let me know what you guys thought in the comments below. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up, share it, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I hope you're having an awesome day, and I will see you soon in my next video. Bye!